Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending our regular school board meeting for Evergreen Public Schools. For those of you who would like to join us, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're battling some issues with board docs, so that's why we're starting like a minute late. The first item on the agenda is to adopt our agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adopt our agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda has been adopted. Next is special recognition, and for that I would call upon Executive Director Janae Gomes, Executive Director of Human Resources, and the first on the agenda is Evergreen Awards.
Hello.
Everything's so
Nice.
late. It's just all behind on times. Thank you for having me. I want to start by saying that our Evergreen Award is an annual award that we are doing starting, well, this is our second year, and we're giving them out quarterly. And we have a lot of people in the audience this evening that we want to recognize. But before I start, I wanted to make sure that I recognize Christy Minnick. She works in Human Resources, and she's actually the one that is organizing this and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and contacting all of the individuals. And I just wanted to make sure to recognize her and for all of her hard work in bringing this together. So our Evergreen Award, we have 3 of them: classified, certificated, and a team or administrator. This evening, we're going to be recognizing a team. We're going to start with classified, and we send out nominations for anybody in the school district in order to honor those that are dedicated and positive influence. And there's a whole myriad of criteria that we look for, and it's such a special honor in order to be nominated and then to be selected. So I wanted to start with classified, and we'll bring them up so you can hear a little bit more about them. Cheryl Empter. Cheryl is a paraeducator at White East. Go ahead and come on up here. And her principal, Caroline Garrett, is going to come up and say a few things about her this evening.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Caroline.
Where do I stand? Right over here? Do I have to use the mic?
Yeah.
I have to use the mic?
Yes.
Okay.
We're being recorded, so.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's my privilege to be here to introduce fantastic Miss Cheryl Empter. Cheryl has worked at White East for longer than I'm aware. She was there my entire 9 years. I know she's worked with 5 different teachers. She's a para-educator in our SLC program. SLC stands for Structured Learning Classroom, and serves kids with emotional and behavioral disabilities. And honestly, sometimes that can be one of the hardest jobs in our schools. All very important, but that's a pretty difficult one sometimes. So I have a little something to share, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. Cheryl Empter works to support students in our school who struggle with emotional and behavioral disabilities, trauma, poverty, as well as a history of negative experiences at school. Cheryl is simply amazing in her ability to know what any given student needs in any given moment, often when there's a lot at stake for both emotional well-being and physical safety. Cheryl always, consistently, relentlessly approaches students with respect, compassion, and a belief in their ability to succeed. On top of all that, she volunteers at school events, most recently dressing up as something, I forget what, at our Halloween dance. And she functions as a coach for our cross-country team. In every way that you could possibly imagine it, Cheryl embodies what it means to be an educator. I am proud to work with her, and I would like her amazing work to be recognized by our school board.
say those beautiful words and for this award. I feel very honored, blessed. I feel cherished and appreciated, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next one is certificated employee. I'm going to attempt to say her name. I said it a couple of times. Ludmila. Go ahead and come on up. And she is a teacher in our ELL department at Evergreen High School, and the principal, Danny, is going to speak on her behalf, as well as April with the ELL department.
Well, I'm honored to be here to help celebrate with Ludmila. Ludmila is an ELL teacher at Evergreen, and she's actually been there for a long time, 20 years, longer than I started teaching there, and she's been there since I started. And so I've known her both as a teacher and now as an administrator, and I'll read you what the words were that nominated her, and then I'll kind of speak to my own as well. So this is from the person who nominated her. Ms. Dychenko is very dedicated to the success of all our in-program ELL students at EHS. She's taken up the challenge of providing support for our ELs, as well as inspiring and coordinating the efforts of the other members in the EL department at Evergreen. Furthermore, she works with all of our administrators to make sure that our ELL students receive the best support possible. Her efforts have even borne fruit. For example, one of our ELL subs, Anastasia Goncharenko, I'm sure I butchered that name, graduated from Evergreen and has been inspired to pursue a teaching career as an ELL teacher, as well, and is currently taking classes to achieve that goal. And so, just my own, from my own working with Ludmila, one of the things that jumps out when thinking of her is she treats every student as though it's her own child, every single individual, and she's got a tremendously difficult job because kids come into her class that don't only, so Ludmila speaks Russian, but most of her students actually don't speak Russian. And so she sees a number of different languages there, and regardless of the language, she's there to help every single individual. Aside from that, she's just an absolutely relentless advocate for every one of those students, making sure that every student gets every single support that they can possibly get. Even earlier this year, she was there advocating for a student that doesn't even go to Evergreen High School. And that just speaks to the commitment that Ludmila has to her job. And so really proud of her and happy to be here tonight. So thank you.
I'm very honored, proud, and blessed to be nominated for such a special award. My special gratitude to the school board for selecting me for such an honorable award. And of course, my special thanks to my family and friends who always supporting me and being here with me tonight. I'm very fortunate to work for Evergreen School District for 20 years and be a member of the Evergreen High School. The staff of the school supported me and helped me to grow to a teacher I am now. I consider my duty and responsibility to further help our diverse student population to become well-educated and active members of our community. Thank you.
Hello. I would like to share some words from Catherine Carrison, the ELL department manager. She couldn't be here today. She's out of state at a conference, but so wishes she could be with you. She says, the ELL department has been so fortunate to have someone of Ludmila's caliber working with and for our ELL students. She is passionate about the academic and social success of our ELL students, setting high expectations for them and believing in them to succeed. Ludmila's dedication to her work and advocacy for our students are an example for all of us. Thank you, Ludmila, for your tireless efforts for our students. We are so very proud to have you as a part of our ELL team.
Thank you.
Our third award this evening is a team, and that they are the counseling department with Covington Middle School. There are three of them. Susha Pratt, go ahead and come on up. Alden Clark, and Todd Kalbrenner. And speaking further this evening will be the principal, Tilly Meyer.
And Judy Simeotti, our associate principal, is also up here to honor them. We're so excited because they deserve this award, and they deserve an award for working with this new principal, this crazy principal who has all these demands of them, and they always have a smile on their face when I ask them questions. So that alone is amazing. But I would like to read a little bit about what they do at Covington because they are so amazing. Susha, Todd, and Alden. Our counseling team at Covington is absolutely amazing. They are dedicated to their work. They are that safe place for students to rely on for support and empowerment. They are an integral part of our multi-tiered systems of support team, the MTSS team. They collaborate to find interventions that support students academically and behaviorally. They focus on social emotional learning and specific supportive strategies where students feel connected and want to come to school. They foster positive school climate and school culture by helping students to learn from their mistakes through restorative practices. They are actively involved in PBIS to support its focus on positive behavioral intervention strategies by modeling and reinforcing positive and social behaviors. They help to grow our students into leaders who then in turn support and build up others. Susha, Todd, and Alden continue to grow as counselors by seeking opportunities to learn through professional development. They have positive effects on students that they work with, and we couldn't do it without them. So thank you so much.
Having had the privilege of working with all three of you guys, I just want you to know that it is an absolute honor. And the work that you do for our students, the relationship, the collaboration, well, what can I say? Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you. We're going to get a picture with the school board and the superintendent before sitting down. Did any of you have any words you wanted to say at all, or? Good. Okay, you want to just go ahead and stand? Okay.
Elizabeth. This for a second. Okay, everybody look this way. Okay. All right. Thank
Please
you.
congratulate Megan. It's the first quarter.
Did you have any comments? I just think it's a really special time, and I'm really glad that the staff is taking the efforts to be able to recognize very special staff and all the efforts that they do on behalf of our children in our district. I'm really proud to be able to be part of an organization that does so much for kids. So it's great. So thank you very much for all the award winners.
I think I just want to add that when you look at the commonality across the winners, you're dealing with our most at-risk kids. And the true sign of a strong community is how we deal with our most vulnerable. And you are truly a beacon to our community on how we should be treating our most vulnerable, which is a huge statement for our community and our district. So thank you very much.
So next on the agenda, we have the Contract Service Provider Awards. And for that, it's Janae again.
Thank you. We have two groups that work in our schools and are a part of us, and it takes all of us to make the schools move forward. And it is with our nutrition department as well as with our janitors and through ABM. And we're going to recognize them annually, and we wanted to start this year doing that. And if I could call up Dan and Dean, and they're going to share with you who they selected and nominated for this award.
We've got two Employee of the Year awards this year. And the first one, what stands out about this person is his service to the district, service to students, and service to staff. And one of the things that I think is important that stands out about this person is that not just his longevity, which is notable, but just the fact that he is here every day and gets around to really every school on a regular basis. And to this person, the service part, he gets a good feeling out of doing great things for other people. And I think that's really the mark of a good service provider. And something that, not everybody necessarily has. And you see that every day. He does great things. He gets calls and goes around to individual schools. It might be a custodian that's off and he's stopping by to open up a building, or it might be a student that has a special need and he's stopping by to take care of them and take care of that too. But when he gets back and he reports and turns in his report, it really stands out that the real, I think, joy that he gets in doing those great things for other people. And I'd like to, one other thing, although this is an award for excellence, in this case for him, excellence in service, but I think his longevity is notable too, and I'd like to just mention that he's been with us for 37 years here serving the students and staff at Evergreen and working for ABM. I personally had the pleasure of working with them for 35 of those years, and in that time, I've seen a consistent performance from him and really caring about other people. And I'd like to introduce Bobby Ryder. Congratulations. We've got a little extra something here for you too. You are such an unselfish person. I know this is going to be hard for you, but I want you, there's one more, but I want you to spend that on yourself. And I know that's going to be hard for you to do too. So that's you have to go out and find something really special, on yourself as well.
I'll do that.
Thanks for all that you've done too. Do you have anything that you?
No, I
Okay. Yeah, you can here. And our second Employee of the Year award is, in this case, this is for spirit, really excellence in spirit. And this employee, in fact, I think one of the things that stands out to me is the one year when we came in and she was mopping in the student center and she was wearing holiday lights, Christmas lights really, and she had a little battery and they were flashing off and on, and she was mopping through the beat of the lights flashing off and on. But that really, I think that's a perfect example of what stands out about this person. And her spirit overflows. It's not just in how she conducts her work, but it overflows to the students, to the staff, to her fellow employees. And it's an energy that can't be duplicated. It's a contagious energy that you really got to catch from somebody else. And I'm glad to report that she shares that a lot, with everybody else. I'd like to introduce Carrie Smith. I'd like to, again, this is an award for excellence, but Carrie has 17 years of service too, and again, consistency in that performance for 17 years. And also, I know this will be hard for you, but
It'll be hard.
that's going to be spent on yourself or your family if you'd like.
It'll be my family.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Just thank you. That's all right.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
How exciting. It's fun recognizing our partners. Hussein is going to talk with you around Chartwell's nominations and selections.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. So the first person I wanted to recognize is Debbie Ariones. She's our office manager. And I can tell you that I started here about 8 months ago, and she was the welcoming face when I started, and the person that showed me how to do things and how to communicate with people and find stuff. So, the one thing that I recognized about her from the beginning was her ability to make things fun, even when it's stressful. So I'm going to read to you what the person that nominated her said. But before I start, I wanted to also tell you that I can't do a whole lot without Debbie. One of the things I cannot do is sometimes find my glasses. So she let me borrow her reading glasses. So today's going to be a little tough for me to read without reading glasses. We cannot say enough about Debbie. She is the lifeline of our office. She has been with Chartwell's for 36 years, and her wisdom is beyond measure. Debbie wears many hats in our office, but also fills in outside of the office when needed. You may catch her making sandwiches or cashiering lunch, and in some days or through the weeks, she will work hard to make sure all the kids are getting a good meal. Sorry, again, like I said, I can't. We enjoy Debbie's laughter and company during our sometimes long days. I cannot think of anything that Debbie does not do, and we cannot thank her enough for all her hard work and dedication. Thank you, Debbie. So the office staff, I couldn't figure out what to do with this, so the office staff decided, she needs a little bit of a spa, a little relaxation after a very long day. I thought it was not the best gift, but it seems like everybody's thinking this is the right one. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right, the second person that was nominated by our team is Sadie Count. Sadie just started as a kitchen manager this year. She used to be an assistant manager at Subway at Shahala last year. And she just started her job and just jumped right in and got things done. So I'll read to you again what the staff have said when they nominated her. Sadie has taken on a new role this year as an elementary manager. In one of our busiest schools, she jumped in with excitement and has not slowed down. Her kitchen is clean and clutter-free. The food is appealing and delicious. Sadie's co-workers enjoy working with her, bright smile and caring demeanor. She makes the students feel comfortable and addresses all their needs with warm, welcoming sincerity. We're excited for what future holds for Sadie. Thank you, Sadie, for your hard work, positive attitude, and commitment to our students. Hopefully you enjoy this as well. Thank you, Sadie.
Thank you. We're going to get your guys' picture up with the school board and superintendent as well. Hope you enjoyed meeting some of our excellent award winners with our partners and that help keep our schools moving forward.
You can move, yeah, just down a little bit more there. Then I don't have to move the microphone.
Pictures.
Smile. 1, 2, 3. Let's get down just a little bit more. Getting about a little bit less than John's full shoulder. Okay. Thank you.
Please join me again in welcoming and congratulating.
I can say our contract service providers and the contract service provider award winners truly make our district a special place. So congratulations again. So next on our agenda is the board consent agenda. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the board consent agenda.
I move for approval of the board consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the board consent agenda passes. Next, we have the superintendent's consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for its approval.
I move that we approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, superintendent's consent agenda has been adopted or approved. Next, we have the superintendent's report. So I turn it over to you, Dr. John Speech.
So on Saturday, I had the privilege of making opening comments for our Girls in STEM conference out at Heritage High School and introduced the keynote speaker, Miss Megan Dyer, who was the very first graduate to walk across the stage for Union High School in their first graduating class. And since that time, she now works for the Navy Marine Biology Division in San Diego, training dolphins. And was a great keynote speaker. And then I was able to return later in the day and moderate a panel with 5 women working in STEM careers. We had about 350 kids participate in the event. So I thought it was a huge success and looking forward to next year's. Since our last board meeting, we've had a couple of Mountain View High School design meetings. A couple of board members were at those. We had one with staff and then one with the community gaining input. And so we've got the design moving along for Mountain View, and excited to say that as of now, from our original bond package where we were figuring out what our timelines were, I think we've been able to move Mountain View up almost a year from its original completion date, just trying to protect against the exposure of escalating construction costs. Also, since the last board meeting, I had the privilege also to be able to open up the district elementary PE showcase. And for any of you who haven't been there, it's a great event held at Mountain View every year where our PE teachers and some of their students are able to demonstrate some of the unique and interesting ways that they promote physical fitness and lifelong health and learning. Also, last week we had the state school board in town, and I attended a forum where we talked about social emotional learning and gave input to OSPI and the state school board, and then the following morning was able to welcome them to their meeting here. And then that also went into some discussions on the bill that I'm working with a couple of legislators on drafting now on graduation requirements. The state board has a bill that they're going to be introducing as well, and there's a lot of similarities between our bill and the state board's bill. But ours does have a significant difference that we're sticking to wanting to delink from SBAC as a graduation requirement, and that won't be in the state board's bill. So at this time, we're still going to move forward with separate bills. But I think they indicated that they were supportive of our position, and if theirs doesn't survive, they'll be behind ours. And I think that's what I've got for my superintendent report this week.
Okay, thanks, John. Next on our agenda is focus on student results, a very important part of our meeting. We are discussing our results policy 2, R2, which is on academic achievement. And at this point, the board has received the monitoring report from Dr. Steach, and at our last board meeting, we actually passed the first reading, so we are here today to discuss the second reading for the monitoring report. So at this point, I'll turn it over to you, John, for any updates.
I haven't received any updates or comments on that report. Again, this is just the first of 2 and possibly 3 installments on academic achievement. We collected and analyzed a bunch of baseline information. And again, to me, the most exciting piece of data that we had in this is when we took a look at our accountability piece of having students at grade level proficiency if they've been with us for 5 years or more. When we looked at the graduation rate for students who have entered the Evergreen School District or were with us at the start of 8th grade and stayed with us from 8th grade through 12th grade, we're over a 98% graduation rate for those students. So that's a huge testament to the work that's being done in this school district, and also really reinforces the research done by John Hattie relative to student mobility being one of the worst things that you can do for kids. So if we can keep a student in our system from 8th grade on, we're pretty much guaranteed to get them across the graduation stage, and that's really exciting data to look at. We're going to continue to analyze both the growth and achievement data for our students and be bringing back future reports. But at this time, based on what I've presented so far, I would recommend that the board adopt R2 academic achievement as I presented at the last meeting in detail, as in compliance with noted exceptions, and approve that for second reading.
Okay, thanks, John. So at this point, are there any comments or questions about this monitoring report from the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll then throw it to the board and entertain a motion. A lot of silence. A lot of silence.
This is slow today.
Everything's so slow.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, guys. I move that we approve R2 Academic Achievement Fall Monitoring Report as presented with changes
For a second reading?
for second reading. No, this was the second reading.
Yeah.
That's the second reading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So this is for final approval.
Gotcha. Okay, this has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I guess as a board, what comments or questions do you have about this monitoring report?
I think John basically said the thing that I was going to say. Just worth repeating that that the data about resident students who can stay with us for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, that's a very impressive graduation rate. It means that we know the names of the kids who are still struggling and can help them in their individual circumstances. And I appreciate your comment about mobility and it being a real stressor. I was moved around a lot as a kid, and I can attest to that experience personally as a struggle each time to get into a new school and try to adapt to the culture and so forth. I'm glad to see data that supports that.
Well, I'm sorry, you're done. This is just evidence of our new governance policy, our new governance model, that while it's kind of gone a little bit under the radar, except for what it costs, but it shows that the data is going to guide what we're doing, and the accountability in it to know what's going on, and identifying the kids that are doing well, the kids that are not doing well. Obviously, the challenge now is we know we're doing great with the kids that stick with it, you know, that are with us. So what do we do with the ones that aren't, you know, that we only have for a short period of time, because we obviously still want to get them over the hurdles. And that's the, you know, $1,000,000 question that every district, you know, is trying to figure out. But this is a great start, and it's a great kind of baseline of information. And I appreciate the willingness of our superintendent to be so willing to put it all out there and to have this level of transparency in the data that we're getting. There's very few districts out there that are really going to this level with their board, and I just am really excited about what we're going to see as we move down the road with this. And I appreciate it, John, because I know this last year in particular has been challenging in just coming up with what the monitoring is going to look like, how to, you know, and now we're in the rubber meets the road kind of a situation as to getting those results. So thanks so much.
I completely agree. I think for the entire time that I've been on the school board, we've kind of, you know, gone back and forth with what we're going to measure, how we're going to do it, what's important, and I think finally we have a concrete plan of what we need to measure, how we're going to get kids, you know, early on in their career with us in the school system, and then how we get them across the finish line and where they're at. And I'm really excited to see this grow from here.
Any other comments or questions?
Just, I guess, one real quick one. Because we always, you know, we all touch on how this is going to be able to help us with our students and our kiddos in the district. But one of the other things that in reviewing a lot of these results, one of the other things that I am excited to see also is being able to not promote, but to celebrate the achievements of our educators. Because this data will be able to show us how we are all performing from one year to the next with our kids based off of how our kids are, because ultimately that is our performance, how our kids are getting through the school system. So I'm excited also to be able to, you know, champion for our district, and this will be data. We can now not be the district that just says we do great things, but we can now prove it. So I'm looking forward to being able to see all of that as well.
Yeah, I would say also I'm excited with this governance model, as you've all said that, and we're getting a look into the results of what our students are doing in much more detail, in much more granularity, in ways that we want to measure our kids. And one of the things that I've never seen before, but now we're getting it, is the number of students that are growing from year to year, whether they're growing a full year every year or not. We have a baseline of that now, and I know we could in the future then set targets on how we want to continually improve. But I do agree that the graduation rates of those kids that are in our district for 5 years or more is just stunning. I mean, it's almost 99%. It was like 98.8%. So that was, yeah, very exciting to see. So yeah, thanks, John, for pulling that together.
Yeah, and as we talked about last time, there are some areas, especially in that growth data, that we've got some concerns. When we originally set these, we thought the results were going to look better than this. So it gives us things to dig into and start to figure out why we're not getting the results that we expect to get, and what are we going to do to change that.
And seeing without this model, we would have never known, because it's, you know, the way that we gather our data, it didn't pinpoint anything specific. But with this new results, we can pinpoint more definite. So I'm excited for even next year as well.
We can say from academic achievement results how important social emotional learning is. The kid around us pays in results later on down the road. It just does. And that'll help us to focus the case for social emotional learning. But when we were in the forum, John and I, we didn't sit at the same table, so I got a different conversation going than you did. And it began to be evident that because we named those results, we're beginning to pull ahead of other districts around the state. And I don't want to name names or anything, because everybody's interested in these results, right? But a way to articulate it is turning out to be one of the most important pieces, if not the most important. And
As we bring R3 back to the board later on this winter, I think that's going to be the first time probably any school board in the state has actually seen accountability measures on social emotional growth of students.
looking forward to that.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the monitoring report for R2 academic achievement as presented with as in compliance with noted exceptions. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the R2 monitoring report has been approved as in compliance with noted exceptions. Next, we have the section on monitoring district operations. And the first policy and monitoring report we want to talk about is OE 10, Operational Expectations 10, which is on learning environment. And the board has received the monitoring report. We've also discussed it at workshop, but here we are discussing first reading. So I'll turn it over to you, John, for a further explanation.
So as this is the first public reading other than the workshop, I'll go through this in a little bit more detail. OE 10 is on the learning environment, and the board's expectation is the superintendent shall establish and maintain a learning environment that is equitable, personalized, flexible, responsive, safe, respectful, and conducive to effective learning. In the OE 10.1, the superintendent will maintain a climate and culture that is characterized by support and encouragement for high achievement for all students. Most of the measurements for that or all the measurements for that are out of the Panorama survey, because as we talk about culture, we do a culture and climate survey. So we looked at a few of the specific questions and topic areas of that. So looking at the 2017 and 18 Panorama student results were under school belonging, students reporting that they feel they were a valued member of the school community. We had about 62% of our elementary students felt that, were positive towards that, and only 34% of our secondary. I would like to note that a lot of our secondary schools, their leadership classes were given this data and they're digging into it and trying to put planning together on what projects they're going to do to improve school culture related to this. On school climate, students reporting positively about the social and learning climate in their school, very similar, 63% at the elementary were positive. We were up 2% from the year before, and 44% at the secondary felt positively about that. Under school engagement, students reporting positive investment and attentiveness in school, 58% at the elementary, 31% at the secondary. Under school safety, with students reporting physical and emotional safety at school, we were down 4% at the elementary, down to 55%. And we do have national norms on those, but those are on historic. One of the things that we've been trying to talk to Panorama about is, can we get normed to just this year instead of overall? Because I wonder how the trend is nationwide with that, how safe students feel. It'd be nice to be able to verify if there's a nationwide trend going down. But 53% of our secondary schools felt safe. And then teacher-student relationships, this is something I just blogged about and emailed out to staff last week. Students reporting strong connections between teachers and students within and beyond the school. We're up in the 90, or actually we're in the 99th percentile in that category nationwide. So 75% of our elementary schools, we were up 2%, feel very strong connections. 47% of our secondary students. When you add in the students that were on a neutral response, we're up in the 90% range on that, which we think is pretty good and hopefully reflective of the work that we're doing on social emotional learning in the district. Valuing of schools, students report that school is interesting, important, and useful. Elementary, again, about 68%, 50% of our secondary students. We have room for improvement, even though that's up 1%. And then we look at our percent on track for graduation as an additional measurement, and our high school percent on track is 74% right now. That's based on freshmen passing all of their classes. Looking at the teacher panorama data, Perceptions of adequacy of school resources is up 1%. I also blogged about that to the teachers. That may be a halo effect from the technology that was distributed this last year. But we were 36% of teachers felt strongly towards adequacy of resources, 40% of overall staff. Perceptions of the overall social and learning climate of the school, 55% of the teachers, and that was down 4%. And that's part of the reason that I shared the student perception to counterbalance that, 56% of overall staff. And staff-family relations, perceptions of faculty of staff relationships with the families at their school, 54% for teachers, up 4% from last year, 52% for other staff. And then staff leadership relationships, perceptions of faculty and staff relationships with school leaders. We were down 1% to 72% of teachers and 73% of staff felt positively about that. Student mindset, which is a real positive for us, I think, is perceptions of whether students have the potential to change those factors that are central to their performance in class. We're at 73%, up 1%. As I remember, that was on the national norm. We're up in the 90th percentile range, 90th, 95th percentile. So the work that we're doing with our kids to let them, or teach them a growth mindset, appears to be paying off as well. And then the last section on this, on social emotional learning, on a grit scale, students reporting the ability to persevere through setbacks and achieve important long-term goals. Out of a scale of 1 to 5, the elementary was about 3.5, secondary 3.5. On a growth mindset, students reporting whether they have the potential to change those factors central to their performance. 3.6 for elementary, 3.5 on that scale of 1 to 5. And self-efficacy, how much students believe they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes. Again, 3.5 and only 3.3 at the elementary level. And then how well students manage their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in different situations, 3.9 for both, so a little bit higher than the other areas. And the last category was social awareness, how well students consider the perspectives of others and empathize with them, and 3.8 at elementary and 3.6 at secondary. So we're using those as a baseline this year on that school climate, and we will, the area of compliance will be to maintain that level or improve in the upcoming years that we'll bring back to the board a year from now. Sorry. I won't read as much of the rest of this. 10.2, superintendent will ensure that all policies and procedures regarding discipline are restorative in nature, collaboratively developed, appropriately communicated to students and parents, and enforced consistently using reasonable judgment. So in the document that you've got links to the Evergreen Student Handbook, to district policies, to the restorative practices implementation guide that we've developed and distributed and are working to train to, as well as school discipline data. We provided the board with the elementary disproportionality report, middle school and high school disproportionality report, so you can see where we currently sit. Our goal is to improve on the disproportionality over time through our racial and cultural bias training that we're doing. And then again, more panorama survey results are connected with that section as well. 10.3, superintendent will assure that all confidential student information is appropriately collected and used and protected. So we provided reference documents to the board on everything from public record requests to our data sharing agreements and tracking any loss of PII. We did have that one loss of PII that was the car that was broken into, and documents were stolen out of the car, and how we responded to that. 10.4, the superintendent may not tolerate any behaviors, actions, or attitudes by adults who have contact with students that hinder the academic performance or the well-being of students. So we provided the employee handbook for employee expectations. We provided the district policies for complaints against the district, as well as a summary of any of those complaints that we received in accordance with formal complaints we received in accordance with that policy, and then the Safe Schools training data. And the last section on OE10 is the superintendent may not permit unruly behaviors on school property and at school-sponsored events by students or by adults that disrupt learning or that are disrespectful or dangerous. That one focuses really on our out-of-school events, out-of-school time. So we provided the district policies, the student handbook, the high school and middle school athletic handbook, and the announcements that we make at events. And also on any WIAA discipline type issues, we provided any exclusions we had and a link to that in your document. So that's the evidence that we have collected towards OE10 on the learning environment. So at this time, I present to the board and recommend for your vote for first reading approval. OE10 is presented as in compliance with the board's expectations.
Okay, thanks, John. At this time, are there any comments or questions about this report from the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll then throw it to the board and entertain a motion for adoption.
I move that we approve OE10 Learning Environment Monitoring Report as a first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. What comments or questions do we have as a board?
Well, this will be an approval for compliance with noted exceptions, right?
Moving to second.
To move it to second reading, compliance with noted exceptions, and you talked about that.
Right, yeah, for first reading. Do you have any comments or questions?
I'm really appreciative of the work that staff put together and how complete the set of data is that they were able to assemble for a baseline. Thank you.
Yes, you're correct. The noted exceptions were that the data was establishing a baseline, so that because we were establishing the baseline, we couldn't say we were in compliance ahead of a baseline that didn't exist. So I was having troubles pulling up the document still. It's lagging on me.
Yep. It's a day for that.
Any other comments or questions? I guess I had a couple of questions. One is, with that panorama survey, we get some amazing results in terms of a look into how people are thinking about school. How many people participated in that? I think most of the teachers and most of the students participated.
If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I knew those numbers off the top of my
I think
head.
it was a pretty healthy number.
Wasn't it like 2/3 of the staff
I think so.
maybe? Or
Do you remember that, Matt? I'm thinking, off the top of my head, I'm thinking it was about 1,400 on the staff, but that was between both.
so about 50%?
1,000 teachers and 400 something other staff. And then student-wise,
The student numbers were in the, I'm looking right now. I don't want to keep talking, I'll get it to you.
Yeah.
Well, if we're having
Okay.
problems up here, you're having them down there
Yeah,
too.
it's pretty slow. I guess the other question
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
the other question I had was, you mentioned we can get the results in percentiles. I think you also mentioned that there's a way to compare ourselves to other school districts. Is that right?
when you get into Panorama, it gives you an option when you're looking at some of these major topic areas. I just logged into it. And it shows you national comparisons, but then it asks you, is it all schools, urban, non-urban? Is it all schools, elementary, middle, or high schools? And then for free and reduced lunch, all, or is it low, medium, or high free and reduced lunch? So you can click on those, but you can't really drill down through their dashboard any deeper than that. So this,
Okay.
and it's my understanding that that's all historical data that they've collected on those questions over time and not just this 1 year worth of data in norming.
So we had 4,135 third through fifth graders participate last year, and 7,331 sixth through 12th graders. So altogether, over 11,000, almost 11,500. And we're just about to get our results back for this fall's administration.
Okay, thanks. So it sounds like it's most of the students in those grades
45%
participate.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the participation rate. This year, the participation rate was, for the SEL survey, was around 80%, I think. And, there's some students who know it wouldn't work for them to take it, and so, but we're still working on making it better each administration.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just had a question.
Have a comment?
I was wondering, over which dates were these survey taken? I mean, was it over the course of the entire school year last year, or?
When was this taken?
Survey taken, yeah, that you're discussing right now.
Yeah, it was taken in the spring last year.
So I think the intent would be to continue this on an annual basis at the same time each year.
Yes, I had the same question.
Yeah, thanks for answering my question. So it sounds like as we establish the baseline, it's probably best for us to compare ourselves to the previous year as opposed to trying to norm ourselves to other schools, because it's somewhat vague, sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the monitoring report as a first reading as in compliance with noted exceptions. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we passed the first reading. Next on the agenda is talking about another policy and a monitoring report. This one's for OE3, operational expectations, which is treatment of community stakeholders. And at this point, the board has received the monitoring report for a second reading. So John, are there any updates on this one?
No updates. I haven't gotten any comments since the last meeting where we went over this in detail. So at this time, I would recommend that the board approve OE3 monitoring report as presented in compliance.
Thanks, John. Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion from the board.
Move that we accept the report for operational expectation 3, community stakeholder relationships, as in compliance, and advance it to second reading.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so this is for the second reading, right?
Yes.
So that's for, okay. So any comments or questions from the board? None? Okay. Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. So at this time, I'll take a vote to approve the monitoring report as in compliance with noted exceptions, if there was any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the monitoring report has passed. Next, we have matters reserved for board action, and in this section, we have 3 resolutions related to levies. And for this, I call upon Chief Operating Officer Mike Merlino.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. So you do have 3 resolutions in front of you. The first is for what has been called the new enrichment levy. So we worked in the fall with our bond attorney, Faith Pettis. She looked at the new legal requirements, wrote the new language. So there's legalese with respect to the levy, and then it gets into the ballot title and talks about what's on the actual election ballot. What we're doing is requesting the $1.50 levy amount that the legislature put in place in the session 2017, and then they updated it in 2018. So what we're looking at is a 3-year levy that would be collected in 2020, 21, and 22. You can run a levy up to 4 years, you have the opportunity to do that. You'll also see the second resolution as a technology, it's actually a capital improvements levy that we would use to help support the technology program in the district. That is a levy that you can run up to 6 years at a time, and so there was conversation about the timing of, do you want to run a 4-year enrichment levy, a 6-year capital levy for technology, and you're always on kind of a different cycle. So we ended up with the 3-year on the enrichment levy. And I would say that the largest difference is in the past, remember, we would always run a levy. We had a levy lid of 28% of the previous year's state and federal revenue. And when we changed to the new McCleary resolution, they went from that model of having a levy lid at a certain amount where you were asking for a dollar amount to setting a levy now where it's a dollar rate that caps it. And we really, as other part of the funding solution, a lot of different words for it, but funding solution, we'll use that one tonight, was that the state continues to provide levy equalization funds, but they will only provide levy equalization funds as a percentage of the maximum levy you can run as a district. So our maximum enrichment levy is set at $1.50 a thousand. Then the state will provide levy equalization dollars to us up to like $1,550 a student, but we have to run the full, we have to collect the full $1.50 in order to get the full levy equalization amount. So at this point, we don't really know what those future dollar amounts are in terms of assessed value increases, because the state really, I don't think they really realized what they were doing, and they kind of changed the dynamic for the way we're doing. So we're needing to set these dollar amounts high enough that we believe that we're going to collect the full $1.50 so that we can collect the full equalization amount in 21 and 22. So what you see in the resolution are dollar amounts. The $1.50 is the actual, we'll never collect more than the $1.50 that the resolution would authorize. So that's the first resolution. The second resolution, I think 6116 maybe is the number, I'm not sure the number. It's behind me, Todd is nodding, I appreciate that, thank you. This is again, it's the first time that the district has asked for a technology levy. In Clark County and across the state, it's really pretty routine for districts to run technology levies. Evergreen had already always operated under the idea that we would run in the maintenance and operation levy enough to collect both what we needed to run operations wise as well as the technology, even with the one-to-one initiative. But when the state changed their format to the $1.50 and lowering the dollar amount significantly, we were not one of the winners in that exchange. And so we don't have the ability to collect those extra dollars through the M&O levy that we would have to pay for technology. And so we went through more conversation and made the determination that we would consider asking the board to pass a resolution to put a technology levy on the ballot in February. And it's 37 cents. It's built that it would remain right at 37 cents over the 6-year period. So we've got the first at $1.50 in the first resolution, and the technology is the 37 cents, so it would be a total of $1.87, those two. The M&O levy that was rolled back was, I think, $3.21. So we've gone from $3.21 down to $1.87 after this, if it were to pass. So it's still, even with the state school property tax increase, the new M&O, the new technology levy, it's a lower dollar amount per thousand than what had been approved in the last M&O levy along with the state school property tax. So I think the conversation we had was, it was still responsible from the perspective of the dollars that we're asking for the taxpayers, and it's absolutely what we need to try to keep moving all of the things forward. So those are the first two resolutions. and I'll just go through all three of them, and then you can ask questions, or I can leave if you'd like that as well. The third resolution, kind of what I alluded to in the M&O conversation, the new rules around levy equalization. So the third resolution is related to that conversation. And last summer, the school board authorized in our budget, we had passed, 4 years ago, I guess it was now, wasn't it? 2016, I think it was 3 years. In 2016, we passed an M&O levy that set the collection amounts for 17, 18, I think 19 and 20 actually. No, not 20, 19 was the last year. And the 19 year was somewhere around 54 million. But with the new rules, we cannot collect the full 54 million, we can only collect the $1.50. So when we built the budget last summer, we built that levy amount based upon our guess as to what $1.50 would generate. And then throughout the course of the year, we get the actual value figures from the county assessor's office. The values for 2019 increased higher than what we had expected. So the $1.50 generated a little bit more money than what we had asked for in the bond. Not the bond, but in the budget, when we approved the budget. And again, the problem with doing that is if the dollar amount didn't hit that maximum, our rate would be like $1.48 or $1.47 as opposed to the full $1.50. That would mean we couldn't collect all of the levy equalization funds in the 2019. It was going to be $300,000-$400,000 reduction of revenue. So what we've done basically is we're recertifying the levy that we had as a board approved in August to a number that we believe is high enough that will allow us to collect the full $1.50, still well below the 54 million that the voters had approved in the last election. Again, I don't believe for 1 minute that there's a legislator that understood that what they were doing in 17 and 18 meant these kinds of technical fixes, and until they come back and say, it's the $1.50 is the amount you're approving, not the dollar amount that's being approved, we'll probably have to deal with this. But that's the purpose of the third one. It's just to allow us to get to the $1.50 on the levy, which allows us to collect the full equalization dollar that was allocated to us.
For this year?
For 2019 calendar year.
Okay. So starting January?
So it would be, and the way equals, it'd be the spring of 19 that we would start collecting those funds. We get something like 70% of it in the spring and 30 in the fall. So it would reduce our revenue for this year if we didn't do this by probably $200,000-$300,000, which is a big deal.
So what questions do we have as a board for Mike?
So as far as the taxpayers are concerned, they're going to see a reduction. I mean, it's not like last year where the state's property, the property tax had the big increase. This next year, it all drops.
So correct. So we had the rules, we had the old rules in 2017. We went to the new rules in 2018 with respect to the state property tax. So the state property tax increased by something around 90 cents or something like that. But our M&O did not reduce. So people absolutely in 2018 saw a pretty significant rise in their home property taxes. In 19, all along we've been saying, and when we talked about the bond, we talked about this 1 year increase, and then in 19 it's going to come back down. The $2.89 state property tax is actually going to get rolled back 30 cents. The state took some surplus funds, reduce that by 30 cents, and then our M&O is going to go down by a full $1.70 in 2019. So you're talking about a $2 a thousand reduction in property taxes for people's school taxes. So if you've got a $500,000 home, you're going to have about $1,000 less you'll pay in taxes. The reality is people, even if we've been talking about it, it's until they see it, they don't always believe that, when people say that their taxes are going to go down, it's hard for people to believe that because they don't ever experience that. But that will happen in 19, without question, that will happen in 20.
Well, and that's because everybody experienced that 1 year bump.
Well, they experienced the 1 year bump that went up and they've experienced their life.
Yeah. So that's what the assumption is, that it will continue to rise.
Right, but there is, Like I said, in 2019, the taxes will absolutely go down for, at least in Clark County. I think every district in Clark County will see. Matter of fact, I'm sure Calais County, I'm sure most counties in this area are going to see the reduction.
So really with the replacement levy, it would be really no different than what they're going to experience next year in oral
This
taxes.
levy, yeah, the levy that we're asking for the next go-round maintains the $1.50. The only new thing is the technology levy that we have not had in the past.
And when you mentioned earlier that because we haven't had to run one, because we've been able to do it within our general budget, and now that we're going to ask for one at 37 cents, and you mentioned that most districts have done a tech levy, are we right around that same ballpark figure?
I can't necessarily speak. In the county, I know that Vancouver's maybe 32 cents, so it's in the similar. What we had done was actually look at the dollar amount that Vancouver's generating, how many kids they have, try to determine how much per student are they generating in their technology levy, and then apply that amount per student to our population to come up with a dollar amount that theoretically matched on a per kid basis what Vancouver's doing. The reason that the rate is more expensive for us is because we don't have as much property value as Vancouver, which, that's always been the case. And I don't think they're planning on putting a big waterfront development in front of Fisher's Landing, but I'm not saying that won't happen in the future at some point. That would help.
Any other comments or questions for Mike?
Yeah, picture. Is there a statutory limit to a technology levy?
There is no dollar amount limit, and I actually spoke with, the only limit is the 6 years. There's not, like you had in the past, the levy lid of 28%, it was a number of different percentages. Now the rate limit on the enrichment levy is $1.50, but there is not a limit. The only limit would be that you're spending the money legally, appropriately. So you could, I wouldn't think you'd run a $3 technology levy and spend 20 cents of it on technology and, $2.80 on something else. So that's really the limit.
Okay. And it sounded like you said there was a 30-cent reduction in the state property tax that...
for 2019.
For 2019. Does that mean that our tech levy plus the M&O enrichment levy sounds like it would come to a net increase of 7 cents over what is assessed in 2019, or 37 cents?
37
cents. This is really going down
schools,
for a year.
Correct. The state property tax is kind of its own thing, because that's a one-year thing. The number's really $289, and then it's left at $289 for like 4 years, and then it floats with 601 or whatever the initiative. So at that point, I think the rate will go down because values will increase faster, most likely. But the 30 cents is kind of its own thing. Our change is really the 37 cents.
Right, and we've always had an attitude and a philosophy about taxation that our stakeholders are sensitive to that, and we want to make sure that we're being responsible with what we're asking for. My sense is that we are asking for the appropriate amount without asking for too much. I agree with you when you say that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we're still, I think, we will have a lower amount collected, certainly in the local tax, but even I think when you consider the state and the local, we had looked at the dollar amount, not just the rate, but the actual dollar amount on a home being lower in 2019 and 20 and in that range than it was in 2017. It's not going to stay that way forever. Because as values increase, the dollar amount will go up. But in 2020, we would expect them, in a typical home, obviously I'm not speaking for every home in the district, but typical home, you'd still be paying less than you were paying in the old model before they made the changes.
It's been interesting. I've had conversations with people about the tech levy because it's new. That's kind of a new thing for us. And they're shocked that as part of the McCleary that technology wasn't seen as basic education, that it wasn't something that was dollars weren't provided by the state, because in this age of ours, it's kind of the thing that our kids need. it's our, what was our pencil. And so I said, no, that's something that's got to be, is provided by the community, so.
So there's an allocation, there is a general fund part of the prototypical school model. There's a fund, a specific dollar amount for technology, but I think for our district, it's maybe 2.5, we were just actually looking at it, 3 million or something like that. We were looking at that this afternoon. But that doesn't take into account, what technology
actually
entails in this day and age.
That would come close to covering the student devices, but wouldn't even then touch curriculum content, servers, infrastructure, all of that.
Yeah, it wouldn't take care of staff. It would, we were spending more than that dollar amount before we did the LIFT initiative.
The prototypical model handles about 30% of the actual need for technology and infrastructure, and technology infrastructure.
Yeah,
if I take the 3 and add it to the 7.
Yeah, it's part of the I don't know that you'd run into many school district personnel that would say that the McCleary solution solved the issues that we have. This is just one of the things we deal with.
Hey Mike, I was wondering, you talked about the importance of being at $1.50 per thousand to be able to collect levy equalization.
Right.
How much of that, or what is the total amount of levy equalization we're anticipating?
So the state set the dollar amount at $1,500 a kid, and then student, then indexed to inflation. So I think that when you take, the way we look at it is basically we've got 25,000 kids roughly, and it's going to be $1,550 or something like that a kid. I think it's right around 39 million total. Of the 39 million, then I think the number we're asking for is like 28 or 29 or 30 in the levy. So it's the difference between the what the M&O collects and the equalization. So in theory, we're generating about $1,000 a student out of our operating enrichment levy. That's not the true amount, maybe $1,100 or something. The difference between that and the $1,500 is the equalization money that comes into us. So it's somewhere in the $9-10 million range in that. But now before, in the old model, our levy lid and equalization was 68, 69 million, something like that. So that's where we've come down from that number all the way down to 39.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Do we have any comments or questions from the audience about these 3 levy resolutions? Okay, so as a board, we're going to treat these separately. So first, let's talk about resolution number 6115, the enrichment replacement levy. I'll entertain a motion for its adoption.
I move that we adopt resolution number 6115, enrichment replacement levy.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 6115 has passed. Next, we have resolution number 6116, which is the technology levy. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution 6116 for the technology levy.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, this resolution 6116 has passed. And then finally, our resolution number 6119, which is the levy recertification. I'll entertain a motion.
I move for adoption of resolution number 6119, levy recertification.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That one has also passed, resolution number 6119. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the good news report, and for that I call upon Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement, Gail Spoller.
Good evening. Excuse me. We already had a lot of good news with the employee awards, so I'll be brief on the rest of this. Several of you were at our first Principal for a Day last week, and we had a nice turnout. 5 of our guests, very good feedback for us, and always a good time to welcome folks in and have them spend some one-on-one time in our schools. We have a number of Washington Green schools that have received recognition. Platinum level, York Elementary, Heritage High School, and Pioneer were named Sustaining Gold members. And then a number of our schools achieved in one of the categories as part of this program, and that includes Frontier, Burton, and Mill Plain Elementary. So those schools have completed 3 to 6 environmental action projects on campus. It usually involves a number of staff and students, and it's always wonderful to go out and see the work that they've done. We have, excuse me, Pacific Middle School once again celebrated character strong traits, a commitment throughout the month of October. They both brought, they brought attention to several important causes, including bullying in schools and breast cancer awareness. They had student flash mobs, and as you can see in the photo, their annual 6th time that they've had the staff and student paint out to support breast cancer awareness, and they always take a nice staff photo of, and the students wearing their pink outfits. Endeavor Elementary received a $500 California Casualty Music and Art Grant, and it'll be split equally between 2 classes. One class will use the funds to include a self-portrait project with science lessons, while another will have a watercolor art project. This grant assists schools in bringing artistic programs into the classroom. Recently, our affiliate, Connect Evergreen, hosted once again the drug take-back program at Kaiser Cascade Park, and for whatever reason, the Cascade Park Kaiser just continues to be the #1 collection site for the drug take-back program. Almost or over 1,800 pounds of pills and medications, and then apparently the newest thing that they're having trouble with disposals, and so they did a lot of collection of sharps. So over 600 pounds of sharps, and they had 650 people come through that site. So that's Connect Evergreen, which Wendy Silverthorne and Jennifer Kirby, and then Delana Meyer and Missy Cummings all work on that project for us. So that's a little glimpse of your good news for the month.
Thanks a lot, Gail. On the agenda next is a budget update, and so for that I call again upon Chief Operations Officer Mike Rulino.
The first resolution is, sorry. Just real quick, I just wanted to update on enrollment. We're early in the month. The closing of the books will be completed. It has to be done by the 15th, so it'll be next month that I'll come back and give you that information. As far as this current school year, we have enrollment for 3 months now. We are, at this point in time, overall looking to be around 60 to 70 above what we had budgeted, which is a good thing, remembering that we were something like 300 under budget last year, which weighed heavily on us. Things look well thus far this year. What I'm doing right now is we got 2 months under our belts, so I'm working on estimates for this year. Early estimates are not always great because there's so much that can still happen over the next 10 months, but I'm working on that information to help educate us in terms of the next several months. So I'm working on that, hoping to get that done here soon, so that John, myself, and others can work on next steps. And so, just really quickly, enrollment looks good, and we're moving forward. We'll have more information next month.
Great. Any questions for Mike? Nothing? Okay, thanks, Mike. Next we have board comments. Do we have any?
Oh, I have some.
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay. This is always such a busy time of the year. Julie and I, with John calling in from his jury duty, waiting,
During lunch.
Elizabeth and Gail, we met for our linkages committee to discuss that, and we're looking forward to the conversation about student voice, and definitely looking for some good information at the WASDA conference on that. I had the pleasure of attending the Evergreen Choir concert, and it's always one of my favorite things. What always just tickles me so much. You know, it's obviously from elementary to middle, then to high school, you see that progression of skill. But what always just makes me smile is what the elementary kids and the middle school kids just are in awe of the high schoolers, because they do sound so amazing and they're really great. We have such skilled teachers, and our music programs are really incredible. So that was fun, and I enjoyed that tremendously. Gail mentioned Principal for a Day, and I thought that was a great group. They had a lot of good input and questions, and they were lively. I went to the H-Rock meeting, and they had discussion on the elections, and were very curious about how, as a school board member, I felt about the elections and how that's going to impact us from the state level, and then of course from our own elections down the line. And so it was an interesting dialogue, as you can imagine. And then met with Todd and John for our WASDA presentation meeting, because we'll be presenting at the state conference on our new governance model, and that should be really exciting to have that conversation with other boards. I think people will be very interested in what we've got going on here. So
That's on Friday, right?
that's on Friday. Yeah.
John, don't you have Thursday talking about the
Yeah.
de-linking?
Yeah, I've got a presentation I'm doing on the relinking graduation requirement bill with career-connected learning, and that's Thursday afternoon.
I'm looking forward to that one as well. And the conference.
Yeah. Any other comments?
So I could probably talk forever about that Girls in STEM event. You gave a very good speech, but Megan's was better. Just watching, and I got to talk to her afterwards and learn a little more about her experience. It's just really neat to hear her talk about what it was like at Union when it was just starting up, and recognize the progress that school has made over the years. And learn a little bit about what their focus and strong points are. My kids went to Union and I didn't know some of these things, so that was good to see. I wanted to point out how amazing that Girls in STEM event was. That was last year was several districts who were in alliance with us, and then Susan Dixon told me that this year Evergreen led off and invited everybody, with 350 girls in attendance. I counted, there was around 9 or 10 companies who were there. The high school robotics teams from Union and Mountain View were there, and they taught one of the sections on engineering and design to the elementary, middle school aged girls that were in attendance. And Susan was also able to show me some of the CTE type things that are coming up for Heritage High School, and the way that they're improving the space with the CTE renewal, and with some of the funds from the bond election. And it was just a really heartwarming event. It was neat to see so many people interested in growing the number of girls who take an interest in science and technology and engineering and math, and kind of seeing the beauty in the poetry and all of that. And those concerts, I was able to go to the East Side concert and see the same thing that you saw, Vic. It was beautiful to listen to the Union Choir and how competent this Chamber Select Choir was. But it always amazes me that so many elementary schools and 2 middle schools and a high school can come together for 2 hours and produce the kind of unity and music that they were able to produce. And the enthusiasm on the faces of those elementary kids singing about the 50 nifty United States.
That wasn't the song we heard.
Yeah.
But we had the 50 nifty, and the high schoolers were singing along from the audience because that's what they sung when they were at this event. Music goes back so long, and it's such a rich experience in the district, and I was just pleased and happy to be there and to have a chance to thank the parents and the students for carrying that on.
we even had different songs on the north side, because I attended Heritage's concert. And there was a gal from Sunset Elementary that did the solo, and she was absolutely amazing.
And yeah,
Nice.
just nice.
Anything else?
I'm going for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments? I have a couple. One is, as John mentioned, there are these design meetings going on for the new Mountain View High School. I had a chance to go to a couple of the meetings. Last month there was a design advisory team meeting, and last week there was a bigger meeting called the Design Symposium. It's just really exciting to hear all the, the excitement and enthusiasm about new ideas for a new Mountain View. And in 2 days, on Thursday night, from 5:30 to 7:30 is the open house. And so at Mountain View's Media Center, they're looking for everyone to come to give your input on the new design for Mountain View. They really want to make sure that everyone is heard. So that's a lot of excitement there. And then the other thing is, was it last week? I think a lot of us went on a visit to my alma mater, Park Rose High School. We took a look at their student-based health center as we contemplate, plans for possible such, centers in our district. And so I think Vic and Rob, Ginny, and John were there, and it was eye-opening to me because I'd never seen one before. So I really appreciated the information. Anything else for board comments? Okay, future agenda items, do we have any? None? Okay. This is the time for citizens' comments. Do we have any that anyone has signed up or would like to come forward? This is the opportunity for citizens to address the board for 3 minutes on any item not related to legal matters or personnel. Concerns? No one on this. Anyone want to come forward? Okay. Given that,
Go back out in the cold.
we will be going into recess to sign some papers. After a few minutes, we'll be reconvening in a board workshop in this room. We'll have a discussion about monitoring report OE12, which is on facilities. We'll have a discussion about the elementary boundary updates. We'll have a discussion about a board subcommittee on student voice. We'll have a board meeting debrief. We'll have a legislative update and a superintendent's update. So at this time, we will be in recess. Thank you.